Well, hello everyone. Welcome to another workshop from Digital Era Hackathon. Today we have Porter who will give a presentation around privacy at zkSync Era. So welcome Porter, and yeah, feel free to share the screen and we're good to go.
All right, thank you. Here we go. So yeah, this talk is about building privacy on zkSync Era. It's mostly just brainstorming ideas of things that hackathon participants could build and a few approaches. And then, yeah, we'll get towards what I think the future of privacy will look like at the end. So yeah, just starting with a little motivation though. And the meat of the talk is just a bunch of different ideas and just some goals are that I hope that one, you get inspired to maybe build something with privacy. And then two, maybe if you already have something that you're working on, you might be like excited to maybe incorporate some privacy into whatever you're building. And great. So starting with the motivation, at zkSync, we wrote the ZK Credo. It says, in the blockchain space, privacy viewed as a fundamental right poses challenges uniquely addressed by ZK. Privacy shouldn't be a gift given to us. It's a fundamental right that we must assert and defend together. So privacy doesn't happen unless we build it. So like, let's go build it. Just a few different perspectives on like why privacy. Also, Vitalik has recently posted about the 3 major transitions that the Ethereum stack needs to undergo. One of them is L2 scaling, which obviously we're working on here at Matter Labs. Smart contract wallets. I think there's been several other like talks and ideas about that. And I'm going to focus on the 3rd pillar, which is privacy. And one last motivation is that privacy is necessary for an open society in the electronic age from the Cypherpunks Manifesto. I know not everyone knows their cypherpunk history, but if you haven't read the Cypherpunk Manifesto, now's a good time. It's only 1 page long and basically talks about how no one's going to build this stuff for us if we really want to protect each other. And there's a lot of crazy stuff happening in the world right now. Privacy is very important for empowering individuals and freedom. And so I believe in it a lot, and it's very important that we build this because no one else will build it for us. All right, kicking off with, that's enough fluffy stuff. We'll get to the technical things now, some privacy primitives. So these are kind of the basic privacy applications that I think most people will know ahead of time. One is you just hide the owner of, this is all blockchain related, you hide the owner of the crypto, whichever token that someone has. You can throw it through a mixer like Tornado Cash. And the idea of a mixer is sort of all the money blends together in a pot and the inputs aren't connected to the outputs. And so you can get privacy of the outputs because you can't tie who paid into who received together. So you can kind of get private payments this way. One challenge of this, though, is that you need sort of all the payment sizes to be the same. So if everyone's paying in like 1 Ether, you need to also take out 1 Ether. You can't do payments of size like 0.3 Ether. Although you can kind of break it up into same size transactions, but it's not perfect. There's some disadvantages too. Anyways, you can also hide the amount. Stuff like private accounts and Nocturne, which was released on Ethereum recently. This is like kind of a different form of privacy where you're not hiding maybe who's transacting to who, but instead you're hiding the amount of money that was sent. And this can be very nice for stuff like if you're receiving your salary or paycheck on the blockchain, you might not want everyone in the world to know exactly how much money was received, but you might want it to be open that, you know, Matter Labs paid Porter his paycheck this week. Just if you haven't seen stealth addresses before, Vitalik has another really good blog post on them. Basically, stealth addresses give the same privacy properties as Bob generating a fresh address for each transaction, but without requiring any interaction from Bob. And on the right is like a big diagram. You don't have to go through the whole thing right now. But just at a high level, basically Bob creates this like extra address. It could be like an ENS domain name or just another Ethereum address. and Alice can send things to the stealth address, and it will be controlled by Bob, but no one else can really tell that it's controlled by Bob or who owns it. There are kind of two reasons I wanted to bring this up. One is like stealth addresses are cool, and if you do want to go build stuff with it, like actual stealth addresses, you can. The other thing to think about is that using all of this complicated stuff on the right, you get the same property as if Bob just used a fresh address every single time. And so another way to make this happen is like you can skip all of the cryptography and just make a wallet that's like way more friendly for using a fresh address every single transaction. It requires a little extra work, and Alice has to know like where to send the money, but a lot of these privacy applications can be built with zk and homomorphic encryption and all this fancy cryptography, but they can also be built with just some sort of simple design principles, which I think is pretty cool that you could do either way. So, all right, one quick slide on just some general themes I see when building privacy into things. The goal is usually just to make it difficult to trace between stuff, and you can mix everything together, like in Tornado Cash. All the money ends up in one pot, and so you can't tell which withdrawers are tied to which depositors. Another thing is just keep everything separate. So like I just talked about, you could keep like every single transaction separate, every single input output separate. It actually ends up looking quite similar to the UTXO model as opposed to the account model. And if you just keep everything completely separate, then like there's no sort of like account history. There's no way to tell who owns what. This is actually Satoshi's idea of how privacy would work on Bitcoin. But turns out maybe because of the wallet challenges right now, almost everyone uses the same address all the time, which builds up like account history, and people can tell like all kinds of things about you. But if you always were using a different address, then they wouldn't be able to know. One other way to get privacy is to isolate processes, to relay stuff off chain and then back on. This can be quite nice if like maybe you don't want to post a certain transaction yourself, but you need something to happen. You could have a relay where you bounce it through some off-chain network, and then it can pop back on. Oh, I have a comment. It's also like with end-to-end encryption, where every next message is encrypted with the new key as long as the sender and receiver are in sync. Exactly. Yeah, that's a great way to think about this. Good comment. Cool. All right, privacy beyond the basics. I think most of the things so far kind of things that are very common in the blockchain space are talked about. Some other things that I would be excited to see built or played with more are things like private NFTs. I'm just going to run through a bunch of examples now, where you can hide the owner, similar to like hiding who's the owner of a token. It's a little challenging because like NFTs are like unique, and so there's only one of them, and so like if you just like naively tried to do a Tornado Cash with an NFT, like the NFT goes in one side, and like it can't really get mixed up because there's only one of it, and then it comes out the other side, and so like everyone can tell which transaction was made directly. So you kind of need to like keep the NFT within the private pool or something to continuously hide the owner, but still allow transfers. There's some interesting probably ways to make that happen. The other completely separate thing you could do with private NFTs is hide the metadata. This can be very interesting, especially as we get towards like gaming applications, where you might want to have like a hidden item in game, and it should be an NFT, but maybe no one knows like, you know, what the stats are on this item. Maybe it's very rare, maybe it's not, but you can kind of hide the metadata, and maybe it gets revealed if certain other things happen. Private DeFi, like I mentioned, could you combine, say, Tornado Cash with the DEX, so you're not stuck just with maybe Ether? Maybe you can switch to different tokens, and basically the like dream state is you can do all of DeFi in a completely private way. And there are lots of cool ways of sort of like combining some of these protocols together. Next, we'll talk more about private gaming. hidden information games is one of the first things, as I was kind of alluding to earlier, where most video games and just games in general are fun because you don't know everything that's happening. There's some information that's like hidden from some of the players. Not everyone knows like all of the stuff. And so I think that's actually, hot take, one of the reasons why blockchain gaming kind of hasn't been too successful yet, is if you kind of know absolutely everything, a lot of times the optimal strategy is very obvious, and then there's kind of not much in the game to do besides just like routinely do the optimal strategy. So anyways, unknown stuff makes it way more fun, a lot more things going on, especially like I talked about with the items that maybe you don't know what their properties are. Having hidden information makes games more fun. And then separately, hidden strategy games can be very cool. If you remember, there was like a racing game recently. I forget who hosted it, but it was like a CTF style game, and contestants are all basically writing an algorithm and then competing against each other. Now, if your algorithm is, sorry, excuse me, I'm at Starbucks. If your algorithm is public knowledge and public information, then everyone can just copy the best person's algorithm and they'll start winning too. This actually applies outside of gaming to MEV strategies, where if you have some like arbitrage or like, something that you're searching for, if your strategy is public, then other people will start catching on and mimicking it. If you can keep your strategy private, then basically you can be successful much longer, which is very interesting. A lot of these privacy ideas, like the same idea applies in gaming and MEV, and like you can kind of take it and take stuff and apply it in a new way, which is fun. All right, private social. Here's something that I'd really like to see built is social recovery, maybe with stealth addresses. So if I need to socially recover my address, do I lose my privacy? Because I'm probably just asking like my 5 best friends to help me like social recover my address. And like, even if I'm super secret and super safe, my 5 friends probably aren't. Everyone like not everyone's like as big on privacy. And so if you can do some form of like social recovery or like account abstraction, like, and just keep things private along the way as much as possible, that would be very, very cool. And if you are building this, let me know. I would love to test it out. Private identity. How can I selectively reveal information to third parties? This is actually, everyone talks about like the passport use case, or like your ID at a bar and you're proving that you're over a certain age. I think more and more stuff will start to be like on chain. One problem that I've thought about for a long time is digital credentials. I would love to prove, say, for example, that I graduated from college, but maybe I don't specify which college I went to. Being able to have some facts about myself and then prove them to a third party would be cool. And it's not very like, I don't know of an easy way to do this yet, even though like everyone seems to talk about this idea. It hasn't been built out too much. Private voting. How can I vote without revealing my vote or giving away my address? I think this is like almost mandatory for the future. Like, someone needs to build this. There have been a few tries on Ethereum, but some of the schemes get a little complicated or it's expensive. Maybe you have to move off chain. I don't think like it's really like a solved thing yet. I think there's lots of room to build better private voting applications. And yeah, this is like absolutely crucial to like, if you want freedom in the future and like us to vote on anything that's important ever, like we need do I know specific projects that tried to build private voting applications? The main one is from Nouns DAO. If you're familiar with Nouns, they hosted a like, they funded some people to build some private voting applications. I think Aztec and Poseidon and some other group are drafting up some candidates right now. And it's interesting to just scroll through the list of proposals for Nouns DAO. It's on their website of everyone was like posting different ideas on how to build this. So yeah, check out the Nouns DAO private voting application or contest if that's if you're interested in this one. Private reputation. How can we build reputation if everything is private? I would love for example, like all of my money transfers to be private on chain, but then if I want a loan, maybe I need some form of reputation or to prove that I'm like have some facts about me. And so it's kind of interesting because reputation is more of like a public social thing, and then privacy is like more of like an individual like hiding from the public thing. And so fitting these two together is kind of tricky. This one does seem like a little more far out because most people don't have too much information on chain yet. And so like reputation schemes by themselves, I feel like haven't taken off very much. But eventually, I don't know, it'd be cool to have private reputation, some combination of this stuff. A few more topics. Obviously an entire like private L3 would be really cool to see. That'd be a lot of work, but if you're interested, let me know. I would love to help or talk with you. Network layer privacy. I mentioned briefly sort of relaying things off chain, especially with things like fee payers. You can sort of relay your transaction through someone else, and that can help obscure. For example, maybe you can't like say there comes a time where one country tries to like block all transactions to the blockchain. You might be able to send your transaction to someone else in another country, and then they can post it on the blockchain for you. And so there are all kinds of like network layer situations where having privacy is like very useful, very important. And then private block proposing, building. This is around like, who gets to create the next part of the chain. And if it stays private, then like it ends up kind of being more decentralized a lot of times. When it's public, that's when you get more censorship and picking and choosing of transactions. But if things are private, like you don't really know whether you should censor it or not. Like if you're a government and you're trying to censor things, but everything's private, like you can't really, you won't succeed. So these are more like slightly off chain, or like they're not applications, they're more like infrastructure and outside stuff. So you can apply privacy at pretty much any level of the stack. Can private block proposing be a solution to MEV issues? Yes. That's one of the big solutions being considered is private block proposing, and only once a block is confirmed on chain, then it gets revealed what was inside the block later. It's a little challenging because you need to like make sure that you can prove that all the transactions are valid, but because things are moving on the blockchain, a transaction that's valid right now might not be valid later. Say if the fees go up too much and now you can't pay for something. So it's a little tricky to do in practice, but there's a lot of good ideas around it. And I think now is like a good time to really start trying to like build this or test build this. And if everyone especially has ideas of this like on an L2 or L3, that'd be really cool to see. Cool. So yeah, building privacy on zkSync. Check out our docs. We have several tutorials and things, lots of ways to build. There've been some other really good talks on building. I just want to see privacy things the most. And so, yeah, if you're building, like, please talk to me, let me know, message me on Twitter. The last thing that I'll end with is, what do I think privacy will look like in the future? One simple thing is just that everything we can do on blockchain today, it would be amazing if we could do all of the same stuff, but in a more private way. I think it's all technically possible. It just takes builders like you guys to make it happen. And long term, yeah, I think this is super important for like if you want blockchain to stay decentralized and censorship resistant and have a lot of those properties and a lot of freedom, then we absolutely need this. Like, if we're ever going to vote for anything important on chain, if we're ever going to do like have a lot of financial transactions on chain, even for like the companies and the countries to move on chain, even they want to keep some stuff private. So I think no matter what, privacy is pretty mandatory for the future. And so now is a great time to build something. Any questions? No, we kind of answered some as we went, but yeah, thank you all. If you do have questions later, if you're watching the recording, message me on Twitter, is the best place to find me, or contact any of our team at Matter Labs. Thanks.
Thank you, Porter. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Well, see you in the next workshop. And yes, reach us out at zkSync, wherever, in any channel, we are there. So yeah, thank you a lot.
Sorry, I have a question.
Yes.
I'm quite new to Web3, but privacy is something I'm very curious about, and I'm a big fan of Aztec and what they have done with the zk money. I was using it just for the sake of playing around. Do you know any other? I think you mentioned some other companies, but do you know any specific apps which are kind of doing similar things just to explore and so on? I mean, like not just for the sake of example, but something which is really useful on the same level as zk money.
I'm not too familiar with everything that's happening in Aztec. And they do really cool work. I read a lot of their papers and stuff from their cryptography team. Specific applications, I don't know too many like privacy focused ones yet. If you have if you narrow it down to like a specific topic, there's so many areas for privacy, but just on zk money, yeah, I think Nocturne is probably one. Oh, one thing I didn't bring up is just the whole like compliant versus non-compliant privacy. It's possible to build compliance into your privacy protocol. It's also possible to choose not to build compliance in. But so yeah, I think like basic money transfers is kind of the most common, and it's a lot of like Tornado Cash, followed by its version 2 is called privacy pools, and then like Nocturne on Ethereum, and yeah, Aztec has some good stuff too. If I think of any more, if you want to like send me your contact information, I can talk to you later more.
Okay, sure, thanks.
Yes, and for questions, to make it like a one source of truth, if you are part of our Telegram group, Sinaver, join us there, or you will see the Telegram group on BittleBox. But yes, thank you so much, Porter, for the presentation. I loved it, and have a great day, everyone.